Hey everyone, welcome back to Veteran Game. If you're new here, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more honest deep dives into the latest games, horror classics, and under-the-radar releases. Today we're taking a plunge into the cold, dark depths of Still Wakes the Deep. Siren's Rest, the unexpected DLC that's got everyone asking. Does it do the legendary base game justice, or does it just leave us cold and gasping for air? Let's suit up and find out. First, some quick background. Still Wakes the Deep dropped last year and instantly became one of the most celebrated narrative horror games in recent memory. The BAFTA-winning atmosphere, tense oil rig setting, and that heavy, authentic Scottish voice acting, pure magic. So when Siren's Rest was announced as a paid expansion, expectations were sky high. The premise? A decade after the original disaster, diver Myri returns to the wreck of the Beira D, piecing together the truth for the families who never got closure. Sounds like a great setup, right? On paper, absolutely. The promise of exploring the wreckage of the Beira D, now a haunted grave in the North Sea, had all the makings of an unforgettable claustrophobic nightmare. And for the first few minutes, Siren's Rest absolutely nails that vibe. The distorted ocean noises, the tight tunnels, the sense that at any moment something is going to reach out of the dark. I won't lie, if you're even a little thalassophobic, this is your worst holiday ever. But here's the bad news. Where the base game was all about carefully crafted tension and cinematic storytelling, the DLC just doesn't recapture that magic. Let's talk about why. First up, the setting. Still Wakes the Deep was so good because it made the Beira D feel real. Every hallway, every cramped bunk, every grimy bit of machinery oozed personality and authenticity. Siren's Rest, not so much. The underwater version of the rig is a maze of murky, copy-paste corridors. You'll spend nearly the entire runtime swimming through samey, blue-gray tunnels, opening one indistinguishable door after another. It's disorienting in the wrong way, not because of the horror, but because you'll genuinely lose track of where you are. And speaking of swimming, yeah, about those controls. The DLC's gameplay loop is almost entirely underwater, and while games like Subnautica or even Abzu make swimming feel graceful, Siren's Rest goes the other direction. The controls are clunky and frustrating. You're constantly battling the camera, getting caught on debris, or having your air tether cable clipped through walls and even your own arms, breaking immersion at every turn. There's tension in being underwater, but there's even more tension when you can't get your character to just turn left. Which brings us to the next pain point, bugs and polish. Veteran Game doesn't sugarcoat it, this DLC is buggy. Expect invisible helmets, repeated voice lines, triggers overlapping, flares stuck in your hand, or even your vital umbilical just vanishing. Sure, it's not game-breaking most of the time, but it absolutely breaks immersion, especially when you're supposed to be terrified and instead you're annoyed. It's even more disappointing because the base game was so well made in this department. Let's talk story, and I'm keeping it spoiler-free. The main campaign followed Kaz, a deeply flawed, relatable protagonist, surrounded by a cast you genuinely got to know, love, and grieve for. Siren's Rest tries to build something similar with Myri, Rob, and Hans, but it just doesn't stick the landing. Most interactions are over the radio, and while the authentic Scottish voices are still a treat, the emotional core is missing. You'll get a couple of good narrative tidbits about the original disaster, but Myri herself never feels as fleshed out or compelling as Kaz. The story's pacing is decent, and there are moments of genuine tension, like those scenes where you squeeze through a collapsed passage as something moves behind you. But too often, the horror is reduced to ticking off checklists. Photograph these remains, collect those mementos, open this rusted door. The big eldritch threats from the base game barely feature. Instead of being hunted, you're mostly scavenging, and the game leans so hard into scripted sequences that any potential for emergent, player-driven horror is lost. In fact, that's kind of the recurring theme here, lost potential. The camera, for example, could have been an amazing tool for both horror and story. Imagine having to document some new unspeakable mutation or using it for more than just snapping grisly collectibles. Instead, it's just another checkbox. Even the oxygen gauge is basically just set dressing, run out, and the story finds a way to keep you moving. And while the DLC does expand on the lore a bit, especially for die-hard fans who wanted to know more about the Beradi disaster, it doesn't do much to deepen the supernatural mystery at the heart of the series. The final moments try for something emotional, but it feels abrupt and weirdly anticlimactic. Is it all bad? Not at all. There are flashes of brilliance. The sound design remains fantastic. The atmosphere, when it works, is top-notch. There's an anxiety that comes from floating through industrial ruins, untethered and uncertain. That's as good as anything the Chinese Room has done. The authentic Scottish cast is still a huge win, and if you love the base game, you'll enjoy at least a couple hours worth of extra tension and lore. For $13 or £10, that might be enough for some players. But here's the verdict: Siren's Rest is a missed opportunity. It's a DLC that should have been a sequel, or at least a more substantial expansion. Instead, it's short, shallow in both story and mechanics, and plagued with bugs that break little immersion it has. It's not a total disaster, but it's nowhere near the heights of the original game. If you loved Still Wakes the Deep, you'll probably find some enjoyment in Siren's Rest. But don't expect the same level of narrative punch, horror, or memorable moments. For most, this will be one you play once, shrug, and then go right back to replaying the base game. But that's just my take. What about you? Did Siren's Rest leave you breathless? Or did it just leave you wanting more? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more unfiltered reviews, deep narrative breakdowns, and all things horror gaming, hit subscribe and stick with Veteran Game. Until next time, keep your head above water. Or at least try. Thanks for watching.